Welcome to the SCLD podcast, where we talk about all the things you can do and find at the library.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Erin Dodge, the Communications Specialist with Spokane County Library District. With me today is James Lowe, Music Director and Conductor of the Spokane Symphony. Welcome, James.
Hi, Erin. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We're just going to jump right in. And you wrote a blog recently for the library, and you talked about your childhood growing up and then sort of what people presume the childhood of a music director would be, or an orchestral musician would be. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think people tend to think that if you end up as a conductor or music director, and the word maestro crops up in my life far too often. I cannot stand the word maestro.
Okay.
I really don't like that word. But I think people have a presumption that you have clearly grown up in a very highly educated family. You have spent your childhood dedicated to your instrument, which actually isn't a myth. But that you have to be from some kind of socio-economic level to do that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm aware I sound quite posh because of my accent. But from where I grew up, everybody sounds like me. And bizarrely, if you go to the south of England, I sound quite kind of common. So I didn't grow up in any family like that. My dad was a health inspector and my mom was a typist when that was a job you could have. And
right.
Of course, that went the way of all things.
Yes.
And we grew up, we weren't kind of desperately poor, but, we didn't have all the things, we rented a TV. We, didn't have a microwave until I was like 15, 16 years old.
Wow.
And so, that's not from the background I had. I went to a very ordinary kind of what we call state school.
Okay.
And I was the first person in my family to go to university. So the background for me is not, I think, what one might presume for a conductor. And I think classical music generally has this myth that it is, like Frasier, I love the sitcom Frasier.
Okay.
But his love of classical music is a bit of a shorthand for him being a snob.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think there's this idea that classical music, it's for the 1%. It's like a gated community.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that's certainly not my experience of it. And I think my life's mission, if I have one, is to try and demythologize that and convince people that the symphony really, it's for everyone.
For everyone. Agreed. I think the first symphony performance I went to was here in Spokane, and it was wonderful.
Well, Spokane really, it's incredible that the quality and the size of this orchestra is really out of size with the quality, the size of the town and the size of the outlying city and geographically where we are. So I think Spokane's very lucky to have such a great orchestra, and people come here from the outside as guest artists, and they're always like, wow,
surprised.
We've got this incredible orchestra, and they're always kind of pleasantly surprised. I'm going, yeah. And what were you expecting? But we had Yo-Yo Ma here.
Yes.
And he was impressed with the orchestra, which is really saying something. And, we get that a lot. And I like this idea that, rather like the Zags, that known throughout the country.
Yes.
I like this idea that, Spokane is a place that people can overlook, but actually when they get here, they're like, holy moly, this is pretty awesome.
They're a little surprised.
Yeah, I love that.
Me too. I think the same goes like the fact that the library has partnered with you guys and we've got passes to go see the symphony. I mean, that's sort of I think the library is working hard to give all this cultural experience, this musical experience to folks as well. So
absolutely. And I think, you just kindly showed me around the new library here in the Valley, and it's absolutely mind blowing. It's really incredible. And it reminded me, I was saying to you before we started this, the library was my happy place growing up as a kid. And I grew up in Nottingham, England. We had a great kind of county library in the city. And so for me, I think this thing of engaging with curiosity and ideas, it's not just a kind of nice thing to have when everything else is sorted. I think it's a fundamentally important thing for humanity. And I think it's the same with great music, whatever genre, whether it's classical or anything else. Engaging with your own humanity, I think, is one of the big purposes of why we're here.
Yes.
And I think that clearly your library does that so really wonderfully.
Oh, thank you. You just mentioned musical genres, and in your blog, you talked about sort of your mother's personal preferences for music and growing up, and one of them was ABBA.
Yes.
And do you have a favorite ABBA song?
Oh, well, yeah, Dancing Queen is pretty good.
It is.
Well, I have this great memory of my mum like cranking it up to maximum.
Okay, yeah.
And doing the vacuuming.
Perfect.
With Dancing Queen blasting out.
Perfect.
So that's a very vivid childhood memory. I didn't really grow up with classical music in my household, you know. So Motown and ABBA were the stuff that my mom really, really loved and listened to, and I still love and I still listen to. And then only later, I was in a school assembly and the teacher put on a record, by the way, that's how old I am.
Sure.
A record of the William Tell Overture, the cool bit that, you know, the Lone Ranger theme.
Yes.
And I thought this was amazing. I was like 8 years old.
Yeah.
So I got a copy of the record as a Christmas present because that's what I asked for, and Santa brought it for me because he's nice like that.
Yes.
And I kind of wore it out and then didn't realize that there was a whole genre of music like that. And then later on discovered that there was, and then my world just really, it was suddenly like everything was in vivid Technicolor for me.
Nice.
My life really changed in that moment.
Music has that power. Speaking of ABBA, my daughter who's 17 now with streaming music, I'm going to back up a little. Streaming music, like my children aren't forced to listen to what I listen to, which is I listen to a lot of 80s new wave. But we were doing karaoke a Christmas or two ago, and she kept choosing ABBA song after ABBA song. I'm like, looking at how do you know them? And she's like, I listen to them all the time. I'm like, oh. I look at her Spotify. Yeah, she's listening to ABBA and she knows all the words, and I just know the chorus. And
yeah, and that's actually the cool thing now. I think, you know, when I was a kid, if I wanted to get a CD of something, I would have to save up, you know, quite a lot of money. It was £15, which is a lot of money for a kid, and go to the CD store and like listen to a few things, and okay, I'm going to buy this one, and that's how. But now the kids can just say, well, okay, and have a really wide range of musical tastes. I think that's fantastic. I really do think that's great.
Yeah.
Are you ready to hear spooky stories that delight? Try festively fun activities and crafts and show off your sensational costume? Well, you're in for a treat because it's time for our slightly spooky celebration at the library. We've got mysteriously fun activities and eerie crafts for some silly and spooky fun. Mark your calendar for a slightly spooky celebration at the library. Oh, and don't forget to wear your favorite slightly spooky costume.
That's great.
Yes, it is wonderful. And the Spokane Symphony doesn't just play classical music.
No, we play a whole ton of stuff.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So our season, generally we have about 9 masterworks, which is our subscription series, which is the classics. Although the programming for that is I think not maybe what you'd expect either. And then we have a pops series, but then we have a bunch of what we call specials, and they can be anything from a movie. So this year, May the 4th, as in May the 4th be with you, we're doing The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh.
So the huge movie screen down, but with the orchestra underneath playing the score live. And if you've not seen that in the flesh, it's quite an amazing experience. And then, you know, we've got this Symphonicon gig coming up, which I'm very excited about. This is Halloween weekend, and it's music from all kind of stuff from movies, video games, you know, some of the music from Halo, some of the music from Spirited Away, Avengers, Star Wars, Harry Potter, you name it. And the idea is that everybody can come and dress up as their favorite characters.
Oh, yeah.
And so, that's quite a cool thing. That's a new thing this year. So we have a whole range of stuff. And then, you know, we do our free concerts, like the Parks concerts we do around Labor Day.
Right.
And this last year was the first year we did the first sensory friendly performance.
Okay.
This is for people on the autistic spectrum.
Yes.
To come, and because we feel that everybody should enjoy music. And, we're now this year doing a sensory friendly performance of the Nutcracker.
Oh, okay.
Right before the holidays. So we're always, I mean, and, you know, again, I'm looking at the library and looking at how innovative your approach is to engaging people's curiosity.
Right.
And I think it's so inspiring. And I think it's also what we're trying to do. There's a parallel with, we do our classical series, but we also do all of this other music that we hope piques people's curiosity.
Right.
We hope there's a kind of a gateway in. And then once you've heard a live symphony orchestra going full tilt, it's something that you realize you cannot ever get from a sound system, no matter how good.
And in my experience, I just got super emotional. It just, you could feel it in your body, and it just, it's incredible.
Yeah. Well, the concerts we just did last weekend, so you missed them. Sorry. The ones we did this last weekend, we did Saint-Saëns Organ Symphony.
Yes.
Which is a great piece. But the moment the organ comes in, it's like 10 minutes of music without the organ, and the organ comes in, and it's very quiet.
Okay.
And it just has a chord that goes down, do, 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 and then the pedal comes in. And you feel it underneath you. You would never get that in a recording. So that experience, and you can feel the audience go, oh, and that's a wonderful thing for me. And I think more than anything, I love this feeling of when a performance goes really well, everybody gets so sucked into the zone.
Yes.
That there are moments when, the music has gone very, very quiet, and at the end of a slow movement, you end in silence and nobody moves.
Nobody moves.
Nobody breathes. And you're sitting there in this kind of communal
bubble
of emotion that you felt with all these people around you. So I think, of course, I love listening to recorded music, but listening to music live and experiencing those emotions with another, 800, 1,000 other people. That for me that's where it's at.
Yes. And I've experienced it, and I agree. Along with being a music director and a conductor, you're also an educator. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like and how you educate folks?
Sure. Well, in many, many different ways. I think being a musician and being an educator, I think really are the same thing.
Okay. And
I don't mean that I have a lot of knowledge I'd like to share with you. What I mean is that I think being an educator really is about lighting a spark or passing a spark on, lighting a fire in someone else. So we have our education programs through the symphony, right? Coming up, we have Symphony Day, which is where we get 4th and 5th graders come into the Fox for the first time. Yes. We usually have over about 5,000 kids.
I feel like my son did that last year. He's in 6th grade now. I remember him. Yes.
Yeah. So we get over 5,000 kids over 4 concerts come in. And my favorite thing is to stand at the just as the door as they come into the auditorium, into the Fox for the first time, and they kind of go, whoa, the eyes like saucers.
I believe my eyes did that too when I first went in there.
Everybody does. Because from the outside, it looks like a bit of a concrete bunker. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. But then you go inside and it's just like being inside a forest is what it's supposed to be. Yes. This forest canopy. Anyway, so we do those. We're starting this year a dementia project, which I think is hugely important. But also personally, I don't know what to call them. I don't like to call them a lecture.
Right.
It's this thing we do at the MAC, at the museum.
A talk?
A talk. It's basically it's an hour-long presentation, the noon on the Thursday before the masterworks that I conduct, where I basically talk with PowerPoint stuff, and it sounds really dull when you explain it, but it's all a kind of juicy gossip about the composers and how they wrote it and interesting stuff. And there's usually really silly, funny videos I found off YouTube that help illustrate silly points. But then I also, I work with a youth orchestra back in the UK. That's a project I do every year, a week's residential, one of the best weeks of my year. I love teaching conducting as well. We had a conducting workshop here last year. 14 students internationally came to Spokane for a week, and my friend Jim Ross and I taught them for a week with the orchestra. That was amazing. And even now, we have an assistant conductor now, Shira Samuels-Schrag, who is phenomenal. And part of my job, I think, with her is, she's working for us, but it's also that, we help mentor her into the next stage of her career. So I think the education aspect of my work informs everything. Everything.
And touches a lot of folks.
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, because I my life was dramatically changed by my relationship with music.
Yeah.
And I started very late. I was 13 when I first picked up an instrument.
Okay.
Which is really late. And I remember the first lesson, I opened the case and I held it in my hand, and I just felt something happened.
What's your instrument?
Viola.
Okay.
So I'd actually wanted to learn the violin. I wanted to learn the violin. So the viola is the bigger thing
one.
between the violin and the cello, right?
Yes.
And I wanted to learn the violin, and I went to my school, and they said, we don't have any violins left.
Okay.
You can learn viola. So I had to go to the school library and take out an encyclopedia and go to V for viola, where it said, it's a big violin.
It's a big violin.
Dummy. So I was like, okay, fine. So then I played the viola. And really that moment that second was a fork in the road for me.
Yeah.
And there's no way I would be sitting here now having this conversation if it weren't for that. I also have to say I was given an awful lot of opportunity when I was a kid. I was very lucky. I was the tail end of an education system in the UK where we had free music lessons, we had free instruments in schools, free Saturday morning classes. All of these things are now gone.
And it's very expensive.
And it's very expensive. And I'm certain that my family would not have had the resources to invest. I think once the fire had been lit in me and my dad could see, okay, this is an important thing for him.
Yes.
Then we put a lot of resources into it. And then I actually ended up going down to London for lessons. And, it was a big thing. But I don't think most families would say, oh yeah, I'm going to buy you a violin. And if you don't like it after 6 months, it's fine. We don't need to worry about that. I think most families don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
And this is a sadness that I see, is that I think there's an awful lot of people, and it's not just music, it's all manner of things.
Yes.
Kids who never quite find their element.
Right.
Who never quite realize that they have something extraordinary in them.
Yeah.
And it might be music, it might be dance, it might be mechanics, it might be math. Who knows what it is? But I strongly believe that we all have something in us that is waiting to catch light.
Yes.
And it is our responsibility as the people who have benefited from this to help people find that.
That's wonderful. And how lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And that's what you're doing here. I mean, this is what libraries are.
As you were talking, I was thinking, our art programs are STEM programs, which, we're talking about, science and technology and engineering and coding robots, for example. We have programs for that.
It's wonderful. And you never know. And not every kid is going to engage 100% with everything, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But for every now and again, someone will find their passion in their life.
Yes.
And like me, the minute I first opened that viola case, there's going to be a fork in the road for them.
Yes.
And they're going to find a world of riches that they never knew existed.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
In our quest to inspire the next generation of scientists, engineers, and innovators, the library offers a wide range of programs and resources on science, technology, engineering, and math, together referred to as STEM. For young explorers, our STEM programs ignite imagination and hands-on learning. Did you know you can design your own video game, code a robot, create a marble roller coaster, or try out exciting science experiments? Together, we make STEM fun. Your library also has STEM resources you can explore at home. You can check out books on great STEM topics and borrow cool stuff, like telescopes and exploration kits from our Library of Things. Unleash your creativity, foster innovation, and explore all that Spokane County Library District has to offer. We invite you to visit one of our libraries today.
Very cool. So, like I mentioned early on, we do have symphony passes that people basically check out and then come and see the symphony. When they come to a Masterworks concert, what can they expect? You kind of talked already about, like, when you go inside, it's inside the Fox is beautiful. And what else can they expect?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that if you've never been to a classical symphony concert, I mean, so many people say to me, oh, I love classical music, but I don't have the education to understand it. And I say, do you have an ear that kind of works, at least one ear?
Yeah.
And do you have a heart that beats?
Right.
You've got everything you need.
Yes.
Now, there's a lot of kind of what I call the inside baseball track of classical music. You can rabbit hole down and learn about Brahms' relationship with the Schumanns and all of this.
Well, like your PowerPoints, right? I mean,
that's what that's about, is helping people go down the rabbit hole. But you don't have to. All you need to do is sit and listen and experience.
Yes.
So I think that's the first thing. The other thing is, come as you are. Just dress however you like. really doesn't matter. There's no dress code.
See, I think people think they have to dress to the nines, and
a lot of people enjoy dressing to the nines.
There's that.
Great. And actually, what I see that's really interesting is a lot of the kind of younger crowds, so the 20-somethings that come, they tend to be a lot more smartly dressed than some of the older kind of more middle-aged people, because I think they like that thing of, we're going to the symphony. It's date night, it's a cool place impressive place to take someone on a first date, right? So I think there's that kind of thing. But then for me, the most important thing, we're living in an era where there is always someone trying to steal our attention. There's always someone trying to pull us out of the here and now.
Right.
And it's usually sitting in your pocket going ding.
Yes.
And, we all know that feeling of, we've all had a boss who likes to text us at 8:30 p.m. on a Saturday night. We've all had that thing of a slight over addiction to social media or catastrophizing and looking at the news and thinking the world is about to end. But this is a great place where you can put those away, put them to one side, turn them off, and for a couple of hours, just engage with that present moment and hear music that will touch and connect you to something really deep.
Yes.
And for me, I think that is the experience of going to a great concert. Now, again, if it's your first time, you might like some pieces of music and not others, in the same way that when you go to the movies, you're not going to watch every movie ever made and say, I love them all equally. Of course, you're going to love some more than others.
Of course.
And that's totally fine. But there is this experience of sitting, particularly with a piece of music like a hefty symphony that might last 40, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Of going on a journey.
Right.
And this is music that very often takes you on a journey.
For sure.
The chanson we just did starts this very dark, very kind of mysterious dark music, quite energetically angry. And by the end, we end up this huge triumph and this big glorious tune. And, and so, over the 40 minutes of that piece, it takes you from one place and it deposits you somewhere else.
Right.
So yeah, I think that as I mentioned at the start of our chat, there's so many mythologies about classical music and the symphony, and it's not for you. And you won't understand it unless you have a PhD in musicology. Absolute rubbish, poppycock nonsense. If you have a heart that works and an ear that works, then you've got everything you need.
Wonderful. Well, this has been a pleasure talking with you, James. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm looking forward to possibly dressing up and bringing my son.
Who are you going to dress up as?
I don't know. He loves Darth Vader. But I think his Darth Vader costume is from like 4 years ago, so we might have to do a fresh one.
A mini Darth Vader.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching today, listening today. Check out the symphony tickets that we have here at the library, and we hope you make it down to the symphony, and we'll see you next time.